Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just had a chance to visit with my colleague from New York. We were talking about, well, the same thing all members talk about when they get together, those things they have in common, those things that make their day a little bit better, those things they're struggling with that make their day a little bit worse. I regret that so often we come to the House floor and the debate that we're having seems like we just have absolutely nothing in common whatsoever. If there's, I'm sure it has been your experience. I think you can ask any freshman member of this institution, Mr. Speaker, what's the biggest surprise you've had in your first year in Congress? And they will say, I am surprised at how hardworking and conscientious and diligent and committed absolutely every single one of my colleagues is, because I was reading the local paper back home and it sounded like it was a big cesspool there in Washington, D.C. I am pleasantly surprised at how sincere my colleagues are at working for their 700,000 to 800,000 constituents back home. Mr. Speaker, we have two bills that this rule will make in order for debate today, and they are two bills that I will tell you are incredibly well-intentioned. I plan to support them. I plan to enthusiastically support them, but they're on issues that are hard in their minutia. The first bill that's made in order today under a closed rule, Mr. Speaker, is H.R. 1699. It's the Preserving Access to Manufactured Housing Act. We had testimony in the committee yesterday, and the discussion was, how do we protect buyers of manufactured housing from being exploited while still enabling those Americans who don't have other avenues for purchasing housing to get into that most affordable of housing, manufactured housing. We have as common goals to protect people and to empower people, but how do we get that done? This bill was worked through committee. I believe it's a good compromise. We didn't allow any amendments to this. There were no germane amendments presented in committee, so that's coming under a closed rule today. This rule also would make in order a structured rule for H.R. 4182, the Ensuring a Qualified Civil Service Act of 2017. Again, Mr. Speaker, when you go and read the headlines, it makes it sound like every discussion on Capitol Hill is among a bunch of partisan hacks. It's just not true. The civil service, an incredibly important part of American government, these are dedicated men and women who show up every day to institute the laws that you and I pass, to be the interpreters of the bridge between the laws that we pass and the way they hit folks on the ground. We all want those employees to be protected from the swinging pendulum of partisanship. I don't want a Republican president to get elected and fire all the Democrats serving in government. There's some bright-minded scientists, some great folks in law enforcement, some really talented people in education. I don't want them to lose their jobs because of the partisanship of a president. Similarly, I don't want to see a Democratic president get elected and fire all the folks who are Republicans. There are some fantastic Republican minds in our Department of Agriculture helping our farmers to succeed, our Department of Labor helping our workers to succeed. You go right on down the list. There are strong men and women helping folks to succeed. But we are also facing a reality that same civil service system that seeks to protect those hardworking, those exceptional workers trying to serve America, that same system that works to protect them also protects folks who are completely derelict in their responsibilities. We had that discussion as a conference, as a House, in fact, in a bicameral discussion, went to the President's desk for his signature as it came to the VA to say, can't we do more to reform a civil service system, to reform federal labor union provisions, so that folks who need the protection because they're exceptional continue to be protected, but those folks who are failing our veterans, that those folks cease to be protected from a system that seeks to require accountability. We passed that together. We did that together here, Mr. Speaker. We sent it to the Senate. They did it together. President signed it into law. This Ensuring a Qualified Civil Service Act does one thing and one thing only. It extends the probationary period of a new civil service worker from the current 1 year to 2 years. The Department of Defense has done this already, and it's been working exceedingly well for them. The concern is, have I been able to adequately assess an employee's ability to perform in a 12-month period? We're committed to trying to train people up, Mr. Speaker. Nobody's trying to run folks out before they've had a chance to learn their job. The question is a year long enough to uncover the flaws in an employment, or is 2 years a wider window? You'll hear folks on the other side say, Rob, why in the world can't you all figure out if an employee's talented in year one? That's fair. They'll say, Rob, if you were going to train somebody up, why couldn't you get it done in year one? That's fair. But as the GAO has looked at this issue, what they found is managers aren't getting that done in year one. Whether it's because they're ineffective as managers or whether it's because they keep trying to give people a second chance and get them trained up is an open question. This bill mandates nothing, but it allows this 2-year window so that managers can give their new employees a good first, second, and third look. The data suggests that once folks get fully protected by the civil service system, it is very difficult to move underperforming employees out. That work should be done during this probationary period. This bill aims to lengthen that probationary period to 2 years. Mr. Speaker, reasonable men and women can disagree on these measures. I believe they are important steps in the right direction. But what gives me so much pleasure to come to the floor to bring this rule to you today is the earnestness with which these two bills were presented. These are common challenges. How do we ensure the very best staff for the American people? How do we ensure access to homes and protection for home buyers for the American people? Sincere concerns, legitimate disagreements. If we pass this rule today, we'll enable a debating period. We'll bring these bills to the floor so that we can air our concerns and challenge our assumptions. I hope at the end of the day my colleagues will decide to support this rule and to support the two underlying pieces of legislation. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.